If you're a sucker for undervalued and underground horror movies, creature features, or found footage, I've got something very special for you today. I can almost guarantee you that you've never heard of this movie before, and it's really something that stands out in the movie industry. Let's take a deep dive into this movie. For the many who've never heard of this film before, it follows the story of a famous director of a popular movie franchise who received a very strange and old notebook in the mail from a fan. The director's name is Adam Green, and yes, this is his real name. He actually plays himself in the movie. Adam expresses his love for the creature feature subgenre, and is definitely obvious from his wall of collections behind him. We're also just going to ignore the Michael Myers mask with a ball gag. Just act like that's not there. It's still November, guys. Don't forget that. Once we get a little peek inside the fan mail notebook, a man who goes by the name of Mr. Decker describes many sightings of strange monster-like creatures which crawl to and from a hole in the ground at the back of a cemetery that he found. He accompanies these sightings with drawn pictures, and Adam and his cameraman Will decide to pay him a visit in hopes that they could make a documentary out of it. Upon their arrival, Mr. Decker seems to be a very average man, if not honestly under average. They inquire about his sightings, and he tells a story about the first time he saw one of them. Decker claims that there's an underground metropolis bustling with life only a few hundred yards under the Earth's surface. And this place is called the Marrow. He says the deformed people who live there are a result of deformed babies and kids who grew up with these issues. If you Google search anything like this, there's no shortage of images of these babies who have serious deformities. But Decker asks an important question. Where did they go? We hear a lot about deformed babies, but not many deformed adults. While many of those children die in their infant years, his theory is that these children who live found their way into the Marrow while other deformed people are. Decker shows many more drawings of the things he's claimed to see from the Marrow. While he's talking about these different creatures that he's named and grouped into species, he talks about them with a very strange fondness and affinity. As they're conducting the interview, they happen to notice that he has a door in his house with a large chain locked on it. Nothing out of the ordinary. They ask what's back there, but Decker quickly diverts the conversation, and the camera just hopelessly stays on this shot where you're staring at the lock and you wonder what's behind it. Adam then asks who drew these pictures, and Decker says it was his son. Adam and Will didn't know that he had a son. He had never mentioned it before. Adam tries to ask about his son, but Decker refuses to even acknowledge what he said and diverts the conversation once again. Suddenly, Decker becomes much more mysterious than they originally thought. And as planned, they visit the Marrow. Decker is adamant that they do not come close to the Marrow, and they wait for night to come. Decker keeps saying that he can see them standing around and jumping between the trees, but Adam and Will don't see anything at all. Adam and Will begin to have their suspicions about Decker, thinking he might be a nutcase. Either way, they decide to go back to the Marrow the next day to try their luck. This time they do have an encounter, and maybe it's one they didn't exactly want.
Oh God, he's right here in front of us now.
No, I don't see it.
Turn it on. Turn on the light.
No.
Turn on the light. If it's here, I want to see it.
Turn off that light.
Turn on the light.
Shut it off. Shut it off.
So yeah, a monster sneaks up on them and then runs away. Decker freaks out, and they all leave. Adam takes this footage to his editor, who thinks the video is completely fake and even applauds them for the practical effects that they used to make the monster. Suddenly, Adam wants to know more. He wants to see what's in the Marrow, and he wants to catch sightings of more creatures to prove to his editor and everyone else that this documentary is 100% real. He hatches a plan to propose to Decker. They set up security cameras as well as a fake streetlight for better lighting around the Marrow, and wait. Decker agrees to their proposal. Back at Decker's house that night, he reveals that he's found 40 species that have come from the marrow. After a night of letting the cameras roll, they collect the cameras. Then they realize that one of the cameras, specifically camera number 2, is missing. They can't find it anywhere. It's not on the ground. Decker says he didn't take it. Reluctantly, they review the footage, and 4 hours into the night, they see a strange, clown-like figure crawling out of the hole.
Dude! Dude! Come here, come here, come here.
See? Did I tell you?
Dude, that is awesome!
I've never seen one like that before.
Really?
No.
Oh my...
New species.
I don't know about you, but if there was a hole in my backyard that clowns came out of, I would fucking move. They bring this footage of a person that almost looks like the clown from Betty Boop to the editor once more, and Adam also mentions that the camera was rolling for 4 hours into the night before the creature crawled out. This simple fact makes their editor finally believe in the marrow. Along with this, their editor actually discovers that Decker went in the middle of the night to feed something down in the marrow that they can't see. As they begin to discuss this, in the background of the frame there's camera footage rolling on the computer, which shows a gravestone-like creature stand up and walk away, but none of them notice it. None of them notice it.
Prayed for this to happen to me. I have prayed for this to be real. And now I've seen it, and for better or for worse, this lunatic is the guy who can bring me to it. And, okay,
Adam goes on a tangent about how he thinks Decker's son is dead and that Decker is undergoing some kind of grief-stricken psychosis. Adam and Will visit the Boston Police Department that Decker claimed he had worked at a long time ago, and they're distraught when the police department holds no record of a man named Decker working for them at any point. Despite all these creepy and very disturbing warning signs, they decide to see the marrow for themselves without They're both pretty much ready to call off the documentary. It's taken so much time, and Adam has a second season of his TV show to work on. While they visit the marrow, it's at night, of course, and at first they see nothing. Adam even pokes his head down the hole, but he doesn't see anything. He says that it curves inward where he can't see very far. He even plays a joke that something grabbed him. A little bit. As they're about to leave, something actually grabs Adam's boot and it disappears into the hole. He tries to pawn it off as nothing and reaches down in to try and get his boot back, as he's afraid of spiders and doesn't want to step on one on the way back to the car. Decker then appears out of nowhere, angry and screaming that they've come to the marrow so closely without his permission, and saying that they've ruined his years of hard work, and that they've scared all of them away. The three of them stand there and argue in the woods like idiots. Adam brings up many of the lies that Decker has told them, and Decker appears to look very guilty and doesn't really have much of a response. In the middle of their conversation, a strange little creature crawls up from the bushes and runs past them. Decker tells them to get down and hide, and he seems to huddle over Will and Adam precautiously as they hear ominous screeching and footsteps that seem to get closer to them each second. Then, Will turns on his light and pans the camera to reveal a horrifying creature that stands up and chases them to the truck. Once they get inside, a creature with a veil over its upper half blocks them from escaping. It moves its veil, and they see horror that was hiding beneath it. As they finally make their way out, the horrific creature can be seen in the red light of the truck. They argue again as they arrive at Decker's house, and he says that he's going back down in the hole before they move and close up the hole. He also says, "I'm not gonna lose him, I'm not gonna lose him." When Adam asks who, Decker disregards it. We can only assume that the who Decker is talking about is his son. This could explain what he was feeding in the hole. His son could have been one of the things living in the marrow, and he was trying to coax him out. Decker tells them to meet him at sunrise the next morning at his house. The next day, when they arrive back, they find nobody to answer the door. A quick chat with a neighbor reveals that the house has been empty for a year, and that nobody lived there. When they finally go inside, every piece of evidence that Decker lived there is gone. The previously locked door with a chain on it was now swung wide open, and they investigate it, finding piles of feces, chains on the walls, and a hole that seems to have been a forceful exit from whatever escaped that room. A single light bulb illuminates the space as they stare in disgust at what they are seeing. What was Decker keeping in there? They go back to the marrow and discover that the hole has been closed up. It then cuts to a month later and we see that Adam looks a little rough. He explains that although he hasn't seen or heard from Decker, the missing camera from the cemetery was delivered to his house. He says it with a very strange emphasis that we will understand in just a minute. In the footage from the camera, we see an unknown camera operator entering the marrow as strange guttural noises and echoes occur all around. Then a cage with William Decker inside it appears. Decker is naked and covered in blood, as what we can only be presumed is the entity from the marrow shaking the cage violently. Decker tells the camera that monsters aren't real as he stares with a scared expression at something off camera before the video cuts. When the rest of the footage rolls, it's now in front of Adam's house with the same unknown camera operator walking in a very unnatural way. The entity makes its way into Adam's house, watches both him and his wife as they sleep, then sets the camera down loudly, causing both of them to wake up. The entity disappears along with Decker and the marrow. While this movie is very simple in its nature, it has a very interesting way of exploring the concept of grief. While it's never really explicitly said, it's heavily alluded to that William Decker has a deformed child that he kept chained up in the closet because anybody who saw it would be scared. His son must have escaped through the wall and went into the marrow where other strange creatures live. And Decker is so obsessed with finding his son that he was willing to travel across the world and stay in houses that he really wasn't supposed to find him. In the end, it was his own grief that caused the creatures of the marrow to lock him up in a cell. As for Adam and Will, one can only assume that they tried their best to continue on with their lives. I hope you liked this video, because if you didn't, I hate you. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you next time. On another note, if you find any holes in the ground in your local cemetery, go ahead and give me a call on December 1st.